Resource Committee meeting to order. At this time it is 4 after 4, and before we get started in our business, I would like to ask Council Lady Yardy if she'd lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you, Lord, for this day that you've given us, Lord. We just thank you for this time that you've allowed us to come together. And we thank you, Lord, for the traveling grace that has brought us here together safe. Lord, we just thank you for all that are gathered here today. We just ask that you look upon us and guide and direct us in everything that we say and do, that everything that we say and do will be pleasing in your sight and to glorify your name. Lord, we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, lady. Do a roll call for us, please, lady.
Jackie Bob Martin.
Aye.
David Thornton.
Present.
Bill Anglin.
Here.
Bill John Baker.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Audra Connor. Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Meredith Fraley. Don Garvin. Bill Johnson.
Here.
Taylor Keene. Johnny Keener. Linda O'Leary. Melvina Shotpouch. Kara Cowan Watts. Phyllis Shargy. Here. John Masters.
Oh.
We have a quorum.
Do have a quorum, and next on the item is on the agenda is approval of June 11th regular session. I have a motion, Mr. Baker, a second from Mr. Garvin. Any question, comments, correction, deletion? None. All in favor of approving the minute? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. So we'll approve the minute, and we'll get right into our reports. Natural Resources, Angela Drew.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
Thank you.
Extremely short report today. And I know I say that every time, but I mean it this time. Just 2 or 3 things to report on. We did complete our work up at the orphan cemetery, and that's what everyone has historically called that location since I've been working here. But through doing quite a bit of research, it looks like there really weren't, if any, orphans buried in that. It was actually the deaf, dumb, blind, and insane asylum. And so when I believe Communications is actually going to be doing a little bit of a report on that, and the official name of it was the Cherokee Asylum Cemetery. So when you see the report come out from Communications about that site, it's the same as what most people refer to as the orphan cemetery. What we did is, if you'll recall, out along the highway there used to be a historic marker that just denoted that there was something historic about the Cherokee Nation in the nearby vicinity. That was destroyed at one point, or it was actually just knocked over and moved to a different site. Natural Resources went in and got that monument and stored it until a time that we could get the cemetery established again. We went in and we used the rocks from the original 3rd story of the Cherokee jailhouse, which after that was taken down was used by one of the people within the city of Tahlequah to build another structure that was located here in Tahlequah. And then when they tore that down, since they knew those stones belonged to the Cherokee Nation, they contacted us. David Rabin facilitated storing those stones out at the Heritage Center, and we used some of those stones to go in and use those as markers for the graves. We did GPS work. So if you go up to Southgate, which is right across from Sequoia High School, and go back behind the building that we bought that used to be the property owned by Chad Ellis. It was a floor company, I can't think of the name. But back behind that building, we have gone in and put up privacy fencing and a nice little picket fence across the front, and put in a walkway and marked all of the graves again with stones. The project's complete, and the only thing we're still doing at this point is, since there was some weeds that were growing up from the mulch that we put in, we're still going back in every Friday and treating the weeds that come up with some spray. So if you go out there and there's a few weeds, here and there out among the mulch. The reason we haven't pulled those is because we've treated them with spray and we want it to kill them down at the roots. But once the Wiltoni takes place and really gets established and starts growing and the boxwoods come along, that site's going to be a very nice place for folks to go visit. Again, and the historical marker has been set back out in front of the cemetery. So if you get a chance, you might just swing by there and take a look at it. And Natural Resources staff was asked to do that as a special project, and the guys worked really hard, and I'm really proud of the effort that they put forth on that project. Along with Real Estate Services this month, we held meetings with the lessees that are leasing the tribal land, and we held one of those in Cherokee County, one in Adair County, and one in Delaware County. The only two I was able to make was the Delaware County and the one here in Tahlequah, but I believe we had a pretty good showing at all three of those, and the reason we had those meetings was some of the folks that are leasing tribal land did not come out for the initial meeting that we had with those folks to go over that lease agreement and to make sure that everyone understood the language that was in it, and to again reiterate to them that we want those folks treating our tribal land just as well as they would treat their own land, and to go back through them, because we have had some instances in the last 6 months or so where lessees would call their tribal counselors to make, to air a complaint or something about something that either Natural Resources or Real Estate Services wasn't doing for them, and it was spelled out specifically in their lease agreement what their expectations are and what ours are. And so we just wanted to go over that with them again so that everyone was very clear on what everybody's roles were in those lease agreements. So we had some really good meetings, and folks were really excited that we had that forum, and asked us when we would be doing some additional meetings with them. And I think Linda is looking at some things that we can do for the lessees in the future that would actually be some educational type trainings we can have with them on best management practices and things, just in case there are some folks out there that have never had really good management practices taught to them before, so that what they're doing, whatever they're practicing, is going to be good for our tribal land. One other project that we're working on that you might see people around the grounds here, I know we're down at the Supreme Court building, or the Capitol building today, but we are working with Todd's group. Natural Resources is working with facilities on doing some arbor work. As you guys know, the rain that we've received has just thrown everything into a growing frenzy, and there's a lot of trees and things that need pruning, and some limbs just need to be trimmed up that have gotten down really low. So Natural Resources is working with facilities and trimming those up, and we brought a chipper on site that we have, and any of the limbs that we cut down, we're chipping and actually using the mulch right back on the property. So before too long, you should be able to see a really big difference in some of the way the trees look around the facility. And that concludes my report today. Everything else is work as usual, mowing and maintaining grounds.
Any questions, comments from Ms. Drew?
Yeah, I have one. And this lease land, actually, who gets that? The highest bidder?
Yes, sir.
On property of land? What I've been approached with was that, I'm going to state it the way they gave it to me anyway.
Okay.
It could be completely outside people from down Texas somewhere using somebody living up there pretty close to bidding on this over there, and then they're taking the use of this land and stuff and using it for pasture. I mean, whatever they agreed to, whatever. I've never seen one of the applications or anything. Is there anything to that? Could an outside person from, say, Texas or something, going to lease that land through an individual here, and whoever applied for the application and stuff is not the one that's actually using it?
It states in the lease agreement that there is no subleasing allowed.
Well, this is not subleasing. I mean, it's
it is.
Probably.
It is, because in essence, the person from Texas may be paying for it, and just doing it through that person's name, but if the person's name that is not on the lease is not the one with cattle on the property or not the one managing the property, then they're as good as subleasing, but you have to be able to prove.
Well, is that being done? If it's been done, is it lease anything like that? Have you ever found one like? You have to go up there and talk to those people that's complaining, not me or you or
And we
anybody
do,
else.
and we do have folks that don't live right here within the 14-county jurisdiction that do lease tribal lands around here, but what we have put in the leases to try and keep that from happening as much as possible, if we have encouraged, if a person that's local wants to partner with someone that's out of state or even out of the jurisdiction, that both those people's names be represented on the lease agreement, because we don't say that you can't partner with someone on doing a lease, but you cannot sublease.
Okay, and now, the other question is, of course, just like I told him, I said, well, the whole thing is, it's business. The name of the game is business. I said, money does anything it wants to do. You got it. And so, what they asked was, why can't local people lease this place here? Lease it, I said, you can if you got the money. And I said, it's a money problem here. Well, that's not helping the Cherokee people that needs it, and that's all we hear. We're going to have Cherokees and stuff, and they're not doing it, and so they have to go out and, well, I said, after all, you have to come down and talk to them yourself, but I will approach them, and I said, but
At one time,
I said, whatever they tell me, I'll tell you exactly what they say.
At one time, when I very first came to work for the tribe, under one lease cycle, it was still Indian preference. And during Annette Jenkins' time as the Director of Real Estate Services, it went from being Indian preference back to going to the highest bidder. And I don't remember all of the details of why they switched that, because that was before I was in any administrative roles. And Linda, do you have a recollection of why we went from it being Indian preference to highest bidder?
No.
I think a determination was made that we were going to look at it more of the business of making money. And so we have talked again about looking at the leasing policy and revisiting, because there are a lot of folks out there that have tribal land that adjoin their private land that are tribal citizens that maybe would have a lease for 10 years, and then they become very dependent on that land, and then when someone comes in and outbids them, then it somewhat creates a hardship for them. But oftentimes, too, that same individual that had that lease for 10 years maybe would only raise their bid for that $10, $20, and the land becomes worth more money over those years. So sometimes it's a situation where the person that's leasing it really needed to be a little more, they needed to think a little bit more about what the land was worth, because they would barely raise their bid from the previous, even 10 years. So
why do we keep raising bid?
we don't.
Huh?
We don't raise the bid. I mean, the bidding actually drives up what the bid is going to go for. Do you see?
So much per acre,
Mm-hmm.
Used to be somewhere around $9, $10, went up 13, 14. Now they'll give as high as 20.
Yeah, it's more like 30 now, is what.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. See, and that's what they're complaining about, is because we don't have the money, but we do have the cattle and stuff that we could use here. Now, we could probably use it, pay, and they probably tell us sell some of your cows and pay for this right there. But, well, that's not really helping the Cherokee people. There's many things. So, anyway, it just, money's the name, well, it's like I told them. Business is money. That's the name of the game. So I'll just tell them that.
Well, and like I said, it's something that we've been discussing. Realty and Natural Resources work together on the leasing process, and it is something that we've discussed that we need to revisit why we went from it being tribal preference to not being, and looking at some things before the next lease cycle comes around. So that is on the table with our two departments, is to take a look at that.
Okay. So, when would we have, when would we know anything about it? I mean, I won't be around here, but somebody will, I guess.
Yeah, within the next, the next lease cycle is when? 2011. So within the next 3 years or so, we should have something developed as to what we're going to do with the next lease cycle.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And to thank Mr. Keener, comment on my part, Angie, I get a lot of complaints similar to what Mr. Keener just mentioned. I hadn't said anything to your group or anything about it, but I would like for you to report to this committee when and how the policy was changed, if it was changed by the Bureau or if it was a policy that we changed or your group, or you wasn't involved in, but how that policy came to be, and if we're letting non-Indians or non-Cherokee have a priority in this thing. And
I'm going to say something here, and I'll let Linda correct me if I'm wrong, but I think some of your highest lease payers in Cherokee, or in Adair and Delaware County, are in fact tribal members. Both of them are.
well, yeah, and that's what I tell people, because I know the people, getting back to Mr. Keener's comments, the people that lease the bigger part of especially the pasture leases in Adair County, are people that can afford to pay a big price, and they're tribal citizens,
So yeah, there are
But
some.
they may not look like, they may not look like it, but that's why I get a lot of complaints. They say, well, such and such, I'll not name any names, but
Right.
such and such, they get all these land. I said, well, they're tribal citizens. And I didn't know the other policy that existed, see, but anyway.
Right. So in that instance, even if we were going with Indian preference, you still have some folks out there
That's
that
right.
it's going to happen. But anyway, we'll
Like her.
revisit. We're going to look at that, and we'll report to you
Yeah.
on this subject.
I saw another hand here. The lady back there, and Billy, if you will, stand up, and we'll allow you to.
You allow me to comment?
I will. How about the committee? We allow the lady to ask a question or a comment? No?
Thank
Okay. Go ahead.
I would like for this committee to recommend that they do go back to tribal preference. I think Cherokee preference is appropriate for Cherokee land. And I would like for this committee to make a stand on that and to charge them to return to Cherokee preference.
Thank you for that comment. I agree with you, Mr. Thornton.
Yes,
Mr. Thornton?
I'd also like you to check in on this land to see how much of it is grazing land, prairie, hay, that type of thing, and how much they're getting per bale of hay, and what they're, how much they could be making off this property instead of just leasing it. I know round bales down my country went $50 a bale, and square bales was out of sight. So
I'm pretty sure we've got that breakdown, and so we'll just get a report.
okay. Because they may be making more than what you think they may be making on this property. So,
And on some of the hay units,
kind of like sharecropping,
on some of the hay units, we actually, the lease is that they give us half the hay off of it. And we either use it, for some of the things that we need it for. If some people do square bales, we use it and use it with roads. We're doing erosion control and.
Would you include that in
Sure.
the report?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Keener?
I got one more.
Yes, sir.
Do we have an inspector out there at loading time? I know all this stuff here. Do they have an inspector at their loading time?
Yes, Butch Garner is our lease compliance person.
All the fields at one time?
Well, I don't think he could be everywhere at the same time, no.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Angie, thank you. Did you have something? I didn't. Okay. Thank you. Then let's move along then. Linda Donaldson, Real Estate Service.
Good afternoon. Okay, real estate services, I'll just give a brief report on some of the regular things that we did, like we had about 888 phone calls, kind of a strange number there. Met with about 87 individual clients last month. We had 34 site inspections. We completed 2 airships and we did 3 inventories. We had 5 home visits, 17 jurisdictional calls. So that says the marshals and the ICW people were out there busy. We had 11 quiet titles come through, did 2 will interviews, and helped 1 full-blood Indian go before the court to have their will approved, as well as some county research activities. Also, in addition to what Angie reported, that we worked with the lessees, we also assisted with the house in Cherokee. You remember the house that we bought last year over in Cherokee? Here is an article. I don't know if you've seen this article about the what they're doing with the house. They are they're making it into a safe house.
I was in it Friday afternoon.
Saw it Friday afternoon?
A CPR class there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is Barbara Flynn basically took the lead on that to get this worked out with community services and with the marshals to do a safe house so that they can have a place for the kids to go to after school if they don't have anybody at home, and so that they can do some kind of projects, after school classes or other types of things. So she's on a kind of a 1-year type deal to see how well she does, and if they can do that, then they'll probably expand that to additional time. But right now it's kind of like a pilot type thing to see how well she's going to do with the house. And she's done lots of plans, and we hope they pan out. So we just thought you'd be interested in knowing what happened with the house. She also fixed it up. There was some vandalism occurred, and we had it boarded up until they were ready to go in, and then took the boards off, and they repainted where they vandalized and fixed it up. Okay. Also, we had a problem with a restricted allotment. There was 30 acres near Stillwell that was part of the Katie Akron allotment. We found it was listed for foreclosure, and it was restricted. So when one of the persons came in and said, "Hey, they're selling my land," we checked it out. It was restricted. We checked out their mortgage. The mortgage was not approved by the BIA, so that mortgage was invalid. And so we worked with the solicitors to have that sale set aside. And so the property that's restricted is going to be protected. They can't get that, but the individual did have some unrestricted land that they will probably take. But the bank now is going to try to work with them on it instead of just coming out and just taking everything now. But we did manage to save his house for him, and for some reason the bank mortgaged 30 acres. The man only had 1 acre. The other 29 acres belonged to other family members, so they shouldn't even have mortgaged it at all. So we managed to save that. I think we've also heard from after we did this, somebody else has come in and said, "Hey, mine's about to be foreclosed on, and it's not been approved by the Bureau." So we'll probably be working on that one next. We also worked on some special deposit cleanups. In June, we had 11 persons, at least 8 of whom were Cherokee members. These accounts were where monies were going into as if like a trespass, like somebody was doing business on there and they shouldn't have been, but we had them pay monies into account for the use of the land, or they were leases that were in progress of getting approved and they were paying it ahead of time, so the money was going into accounts that were not getting interest. So we changed over these accounts to interest-bearing accounts with the Bureau, and that was $82,889 for these people. So I think they were all happy. So that's our report. So do you have any questions?
Mr. Johnson? Linda, what is the situation with the land at North Ramona?
We're still working on that. We have somebody that's doing an appraisal on it. He was supposed to have that in this week. Well, actually, last week. He's supposed to have that appraisal to us last week, and he calls in and he says, he's not done one for this kind of instance before, and he wanted more instructions on what to do, but we just keep telling him it's a business lease. Let's just look at it that way. Business lease.
Now, you talk about appraisal. What are you really appraising?
The land itself. The land where the casino will go on. So you have to have that. Anytime you do a lease with the Bureau for an individual, you have to have that appraisal so that the Bureau knows that when you do your negotiations for how much you're going to get, that you're getting at least the appraised value or more. And in this situation with that, we know that whatever they appraise it at, we're going to be getting more. And we're just having problems getting that appraiser to put that together in the terms that the Office of a Special Trustee Review Appraiser will be satisfied with. And we've also given them names of an appraiser that has appraised for other casino sites that are outside of the Cherokee Nation jurisdiction for him to discuss it with that person, so that they can get it down. And also ask them to talk to Preston Smith with the OST so that if they have any questions about the problems that they think they're getting, they'll get it. But that's been our problem, is trying to get that out of the appraiser so that we can move forward on that. And I think we had one additional question of the family is, are you expecting it to be a permanent building or modulars? Because they'll want that in the lease as to which way they want to go. If it was you, would you want permanent building or would you want modulars? Because modulars could be moved off later
If I own
on.
the land and depends on the building, but you want to build a permanent building and someday I own it.
That's right, so they would own it. And that was a question we had of their attorney was, did they want permanent or modulars?
Bill, and Linda, to follow up on that, we've been chasing this thing around for probably 2 or 3 years, and Cherokee Nation's probably lost millions of dollars because the Osagers are just right down the road capitalizing on it, and we're sitting here talking about an appraiser that's costing us money. And
part of that too, Bill, was the family couldn't make up their mind, and that took them a long time to even make up their mind as to what they wanted. So we set it on a long time just for them to decide that yes, we want to do it, yes, we'll take this amount and move forward. So now that we finally all come to terms on that, we're pretty much ready to go. But be aware that when this goes, even after we get it all packaged up and it goes to the Bureau for approval, because it's a casino lease, it has to take another step that most leases don't have. It's got to go to the Washington office for additional approval. So, and if they feel like the environmental, that also has to be done. If they feel like that is not adequate, they may ask for it to become a environmental impact statement, which could also be very costly and time-consuming to do. We're hoping that because it was a business on there already, and this is a business going there again, that it shouldn't impact the land, because you're talking about a business that was a smoke shop, just turning it into a casino. You're not seeing any kind of real environmental impact there, do you? You just may have a little more traffic flow. And that's how we're going to put it to them.
well, and the environmental, the environmental, I couldn't imagine that being an impact because of a multi-million-dollar Walmart distribution center sitting right next door.
Yeah, and it shouldn't. But we have to be aware that these are things that they can pick at on us. So we have to prepare for any kind of eventualities on that. But we are moving forward. I've talked to that attorney and we've had discussions, so we're trying to get this done.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr.
Mr. Watt?
Thank you. Do we have title to the Clemmer Federal Building?
No, not yet. You know what's happening on that? They keep having illnesses and resignations at the DC office. And the person had a heart attack, tried to come back to work, couldn't, moved to the Horton Agency. They've had to replace her. They've had problems with trying to get somebody in that spot. And we've been with them this past week, and they said, well, the person that assigns has been out for the last 3 weeks.
So you reminded them it's been like 3 years.
Yeah. So, and we told them there's problems with the building too, and we don't really want to go into that building and renovate it unless we know it's ours. They keep saying, oh, it's going to be yours.
I have
Yes.
opportunities left and right.
Yeah, and we would really like to have that fixed up because I know that building is a good building to have as a rental because there's a lot of people that would want in it. And so we are calling them every week. It's got down to that. Did you know the Salisaw Creek, we don't even have title to it, that property?
Nice.
So we are on them on that one too. And we've searched everywhere and we asked, and it turns out somebody dropped the ball some years ago and they just figured, oh, you're using it, it's okay. Well, that's not good enough when you really get down to it. We actually want to see that published notice in the paper. So you may see that coming up soon because we're sending that, in fact, we faxed that over to the Bureau today saying this is the notice that we want to see appear, and it's got to go through the Muskogee office, and then they have to send it to D.C., and they said, okay, they'll get it over there today so that we can get that done. We told them, is it a matter of cost? And they said, no, don't think about cost. That they can handle it. So it's one of those kind of things that's why we keep periodically, we call them up and say, where is it? And we're still calling them up. So we've got names now, who to contact each time now whenever we want to call them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments or questions? Linda, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Move along, item 3 and 4, roads and transportation and public comment, road issue. Michael Lynn.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see y'all. I'll start here with the IRR projects we've got going now. Cedar Crest Bridge, we did receive it's in Mays County, we did receive a letter back from the landowner we're working with on that property. He had a pretty lengthy list of demands that he wanted. We're in the process now of drafting a response back to him and working with the county commissioner as well as the district attorney in Mays County to try to figure out what's doable and what's not. I don't know that we'll be able to come to an agreement or a consensus, but the county commissioner has given us his word that if he will proceed with condemnation if necessary. The Daytown Dry Creek project in Delaware County has been awarded to a construction company out of Tulsa called Paragon Contractors. We've met with them. In fact, we had a pre-construction community meeting on July 10th, last Tuesday, I believe, and had a really good turnout up there. The response was we were feeding, so that was what made it really well. But we had a crowded room, and everybody's really excited about getting that roads project started. It's kind of been an ongoing battle. I've reported on it in the past few months. We've had some contracting issues, but that has all been settled, and it was awarded to Paragon. They were scheduled to start today, the 16th, and I haven't received word, but whether they had or haven't. But the notice to proceed went out, and they were scheduled to start today. The Fairview Uchee project, also up in Delaware County, is well underway, really going strong. It's in 40 to 50% complete, and that number will probably jump up here fast within the next couple of months as they start getting rock and getting asphalt down on the ground. But it is progressing along very well. The Honey Hill project, we had I report on this every month, and it seems very slow, but I had got notice just before I come over here that one landowner is a parcel of land that actually went up for foreclosure, I believe, and was acquired by another individual. We learned that, and when we did, we went out and met with those new individuals this afternoon, and they signed the easement. So that's one down. So we are that's a little glimpse of hope right there. But I know that the district attorney from this area is working on it. I did get an email from Jerry Moore this morning inquiring with an assistant DA of his as to the status. Now, I didn't get a response back from the assistant DA, but I did ask Jerry to let me know something when he found out. Red Barn Road here in Cherokee County is progressing, but it is progressing slowly. We've had a lot of problems with utilities out there, weather last summer with being a drought, and of course everybody knows what it's been like this summer. That has set us back a little bit there, but it is progressing along. Rice Woodard Road, we're redesigning, that's in Cherokee County, we're redesigning a section of North Rice Road for curb and gutter, which will minimize the amount of right-of-way required on those properties there. We've got 3 individuals up there that have held out this long, and I actually went out on the site to their home and met with one of them the other day, and it really is getting up into their front yard, into their front doorsteps, really. I went back to the office and asked them to take a look at it. We have gotten with the engineer, and it's going to be it's doable. We've got anytime we put a curb and gutter section in, we've got to be sure and figure out what we can do with the water, because when there's a curb, there's no ditch, and you've got to figure out what to do with the water. So yeah, exactly. So we have identified that it's doable, and know that it's going to get done. Hopefully, once this is redesigned, we'll get the landowners to go ahead and sign those easements and be moving along on that project. Twin Oaks Bull Hollow project in Delaware County is scheduled for a plan in hand meeting on July 31st, so we'll be up in that area with the engineer and BI officials, as well as the county, running through that project, taking a look at the plans on that. It's a plan in hand is a good thing. It's kind of in the final design phases, so that's where we're going to be on that. And then lastly, I want to mention the Stick Ross Loop right out here. Goes out by the powwow ground, connects back into 62 down on the west side. That's a rehabilitation or an overlay project that we've got going. That project has been bid out and awarded to APCO Construction here in Tahlequah. They're scheduled to start that here. The notice to proceed has not went out on it yet, but I anticipate it starting within the next couple of weeks. That's a job that I would really want to get finished before the holiday comes up in September. So I'm really pushing hard to get that one started, so it'll look nice and clean during the holidays. On our non-IRR or tribally funded projects, we've got a bunch of them coming this month to Executive Finance. Just over $588,000 worth of projects. We've got one in Adair County. Mr. Martin, Mr. Crittenden sponsored. It's a Salem Road. What it is an addition. I think I may have spoke to you all on the phone for Mr. Chandler, Commissioner Chandler, to obligate his remaining funds to that project that he's already gotten funding for. I've got 3 in Cherokee County, sponsored by Mr. Baker and Ms. Connor. Grote Road, West Gideon Road, and West Clyde Mayer Road. I really don't know the story behind those, but the commissioner called me and said, what's the status of them? He hadn't heard anything, and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, do you all know this story? I don't know. Bobby called me and said, I need to know what's going on with them, and I said, I've not seen any requests for them. He said, well, I've submitted them. I said, well, I've not seen them. We didn't have a file on them, didn't have anything. Come to find out, they never did get submitted. He had the originals there still in his hand, so that's what these are. I know you guys signed them, I think, back in 06 sometime. So they are finally making it to the committee this month. I've got 6 in Mays County, 5 of them sponsored by Mr. Keener, and 1 sponsored by Ms. Fraley. Woodland Road, Wycliffe Road, both construction and striping. Arnold's Bridge and Lake Access striping by Mr. Keener, and then the Town of Strang street repair sponsored by Ms. Fraley, and then 3 in Sequoia County sponsored by Ms. Yargy. There are 2 of them are working in the city of Vian on some street repairs there, and then an evening shade road extension in Sequoia County with Commissioner Carter. Again, those total just over $588,000, and they'll be going to Executive Finance at the end of this month. And that is all that I have to report.
Any questions, comments? Michael, thank you.
Thank you all.
Well, let's move along to item 5, facilities. David Roberts.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Council. Things that we've been working on, we've been having some roof repair done on the complex, and this morning they delivered the Caterpillar generator for the backup electric at the complex. So they got that installed today. One of our Water Street paint project, we're laying the carpet and the tile. As soon as the cubicles arrive, we should finish that in a couple of weeks. With all the rain, our mowing has just constantly been going on. And projects that we're trying to get done for the holiday, electrical upgrades at the powwow, the holiday strip west of the Marshalls, and Marcoma. And we're also trying to get these softball field scoreboards put up. And that's all I have.
What?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did I just hear correctly that we will have our upgrades to the powwow?
We're trying to. This is electrical.
Okay, it has nothing to do with our bathrooms we funded or the...
Construction management is working on those, on the restrooms.
Okay.
And so I haven't talked to them in a few days. I'm not sure how far they are on it. But, I can check that.
Well, I'd appreciate a follow-up by email, but I'll also vote in committee. That way we're both bugging them.
Okay.
It's getting close. Thank you. Thank
Any
you,
other
Mr. Chair.
questions, comments? Well, David, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move along then. There's no unfinished business. We do have a couple items, new business. Linda, you'll present this resolution. Item 1, resolution authorizing the second resolution number 90-06 and authorizing approval of lease between Cherokee Nation and Park Hill Community Organization to construct the Park Hill Community Building on the Orange School Fee property. Got a motion, Mr. Baker to approve, second, Mr. Watt. Any questions? Comments, comments, all in favor of approval? Aye. Any opposed? None, all right. Number 2.
Move for approval.
Second.
Yeah, I guess all of you can read, I don't need to read that to you. I have a motion from who? Phyllis, and a second from Mr. Anglen, and any questions? Have a hand from the audience.
Thank you. If the committee did choose to take a position on Cherokee preference, would we have to pass it today and then it would go into new business next time? Is that how we would put that?
Okay, let me ask you a question. Are you relating back to the issue of the leases?
Cherokee preference for lease land.
Lease, okay, let's hold off for that just a minute, and let's vote on this issue, and then we'll get back to your question, okay?
Sorry, I thought you
All right,
voted.
so we have a motion, second, on the second resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Okay. All right, state your question again. Stand up so we can get you recorded up to the mic, if you will.
Okay.
And we might need some help from
Okay, I would,
Mr. Baker.
Just as a matter of point, I've got a note. I'm going to have Todd write one and research it, and I'm planning on bringing it to next council, or this committee meeting next time. So,
it's cared for. Thank you.
I was going to tell Billy that.
Ms. Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I meant to, Councilman Thornton got the floor before, but I believe this has already been addressed in committee, and we have already requested that it return to Cherokee preference at a resources meeting that was being held out at Delaney. So in the past 6 months to a year, after the last review was given, we requested that be done. So I appreciate the comments, but I think it's an agreement what this body has already done. It just needs to be followed through with.
So we'll,
Okay, and the other part, I did have another part to my comment. Previously, when Councilman Crittenden, I think, chaired, but I think you were here at the time, I'm sure both of you were, that if you leased tribal land and you sprigged it or fenced it or improved the land, that you got extra consideration for renewing your lease. Do you remember that period? Remember, John? No. Okay, it seems to me that used to be a part of the consideration for tribal members, that when they had sprigged the land or fenced it or cleared it or done improvements, that gave them extra points for preference when renewal of the lease came up. And I was just wondering if anyone remembered where that went. I thought that was a good thing to do.
and if you're, Ms. Yardell, that's for have the floor in a minute. You have your hand up. Anyway, a comment I want to make was when you mentioned Mr. Crittenden, chair of this committee, that's before my time, but there might have been some of the others that were here then. But anyway, those questions I think would be something Ms. Drews and her staff could do some review on and give us a report on that. Phyllis, you have a question?
I just had a comment too, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. Is that evidently there's been some recommendation for some research for clarification made.
Yeah.
And I think that's, all of that should come up. If we have those points of interest or questions, then I think that research is the thing that's going to bring it forward. So I think if we let the people do their work, we'll probably get answers. Thank you.
I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I should have done it while Michael was up there, but I forgot. I'm about half step behind here lately. Michael, I had a question. A citizen asked me about Hilltop Circle. That road is a dirt road. And he has been there 4 or 5 years now, and he's been told by county commissioners that it's the housing authority's duty to take care of that road. The housing authority is told him that it's the county commissioner's duty to take that road, to take care of that road. He said in the 4 years he's been there, he knows that it's been graded twice. Do you have any insight to that? Do you have any idea of whose responsibility that road is?
Is this the one up off of that Rice Road there? Okay. That's always up for debate anytime those people ask inside those complexes. It all kind of goes back to whether the road's ever been turned over to the county, and if the county's actually accepted that road. And I really don't know in this case without doing some research. I would tend to say if the county's graded it in the past, they've probably taken the maintenance responsibility. But again, I don't know without researching it for sure. But I do know, I think maybe that's what Mr. Baker's going to refer to, that we've talked about funding that project with some tribal dollars once the construction is completed on that Rice Woodard project.
Mr. Baker, do you have?
Yeah, we tried to do it. They talked us out of it because they said the elevation of the road was going to change and that we'd be wasting our money to pave it almost 3 years ago when we had the money. And then Rice Road drug on, but we did get who took the Chad out there and filled the deep choke holes?
That I do not know.
The housing authority might have, but anyway, we did do that to make it at least palatable, because you drop a car in one of them, and it's supposed to just be a temporary thing for a year. Now it's 3 years later or 2 years later, and hopefully we can do it in the next cycle if they get the paving out front and determine what the elevation is going to be. Because if we went to their specs, it would never work. But even if we did, there'd be a foot drop off or something until we get the new road in. So anyway, there was problems with doing it, and it had drug on.
Did you get this complaint here recently? Is it in bad shape now?
Last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Doug and see if there's anything, Doug Hubbard, see if there's anything he can do.
Okay. Let me know.
Okay, but it is in the works.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, that takes care of all our business. I need a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Oh.